In this video, I want to talk about natural intelligence. I want to talk about intelligence in everything, in life, in nature, in us human beings, animals, everything. And so it's about natural intelligence and not about cognitive or mental or intellectual intelligence, the way the neocortex in the brain uh, is in our own intelligence, the human intelligence. Uh, and I prefer to talk about natural intelligence because it's so fascinating to me. Uh, and I want to give an example of what this is. Imagine a mushroom, and the mushroom, if you look at what's like the other part of the mushroom that we know of, that's inside the earth. What's inside the earth and that belongs to the mushroom, it's called the mycelium. And a mycelium is like many filaments belonging to the mushroom, or actually the mushroom belongs to the mycelium. But so the mycelium is filaments, a little bit like our networks in our brain. Our neurons are a little bit also like filaments, and they interconnect to uh, to send information from one part to another. The mycelium does the same thing in the forest, and it sends information to other parts of the mushroom, and it also sends and shares information between trees. So trees communicate together via the mushroom. Um, it's so smart, isn't it? Like it's if we really think about it, like how does it know? How does the mushroom know that it has to connect with the roots of the trees, and how do the trees develop? How did they develop to connect together and share information from tree to tree via the mushroom, and share nutrients too from tree to tree? For example, a mother tree could give its little trees that are around it. It could give them nutrients via the mushroom, and it covers the trees, so that the little trees that are still like maybe a few decades old, instead of them using photosynthesis to produce their own energy, it's the mother that shades them by branching out to where the daughter or her sons are, and then it sends them nutrients via the mushroom. So I find that really intelligent. But the mushroom and the trees don't have a brain. So where does this intelligence come from? Same thing with ants. Like how do ants? They have a brain, but I mean they have a like they have an intelligence. Ants, to know how to work as a team. They probably do teamwork better than human beings. Same with bees. Same with dolphins. They have such an amazing intelligence, but they don't have the cognitive intelligence that we have. Um, Same with planets that form and constellations to keep. Like it's to me, and I relate it to self-assembly, the self-assembly of molecules. In order to, it's like the universe tries to increase order by decreasing the entropy in itself. And it's an intelligence. It's an intelligence that's not mental. So how it's fascinating to me, like how is this possible? It seems like everything in life wants to uh, assemble, wants to connect. Trees want to connect together, although there is competition. By the way, yeah, there is competition between trees. Trees from the same species help each other, and they are in competition with trees that belong to a different species. So that too, like, how do they know? Just asking this question, like, and not necessarily to find a solution. I'm not necessarily interested in finding like a scientific explanation, but to understand at a deeper level what's happening. It feels good to to understand at the feeling level what's happening in nature and in us. Same with the the microbiome. The microbiome is also very fascinating. The microbiome is all the microbes that live in our guts. Our guts is full of microbes. We have 10 times, I don't know if it's 10 times actually, but we have the number of microbes that live in us is bigger as a number than the cells in our body. And we are all made of cells. Our brain is all cells. We have trillions of cells in our body. But imagine there's more microbes in our body than us, than me, the self that I am. So if I want to see myself scientifically as a person, I'm more a microbial organism than I am Raja, the person that I am. Same as you, same as everybody. And what increases our our capacity to survive bacteria and not die from diseases is actually one of the things is actually the vagina of the mother. When the baby goes out of the mother, the microbes that are on the vagina help the baby develop its own immune system. So they say that if the mother has a better diet, which is very logical to me, if the mother has a better diet, if the mother eats more I don't want to, I'm probably oversimplifying here, but let's say that she eats more fruits and vegetables and fermented food, then the bacteria on her vagina will be probably of a better quality, maybe more in number, and there will be a better diversity of microbes. So when the baby passes through, there will be more microbes, good microbes, surrounding his face and everything. I know it sounds a little bit maybe disgusting for some, but it's true. This is how nature is. And this person, this baby, could develop as a healthier baby than a baby whose mother, for example, is stressed and eats a bad diet and drinks, for example. And the repercussions on this person later on will be probably big. So sometimes we see people are suffering in life, and we wonder why. It could be that maybe when they were born, there wasn't enough bacteria on his or her mother's opening vagina. Same with breast milk. Breast milk is also has microbes in it. And if the mother again eats a better diet, the microbes in the breast milk will be of a better quality, and maybe more diverse too. And we need diversity in our microbiome. And all of this is intelligence. This is a kind of intelligence that's not cognitive. It's adaptive. It's an adaptive intelligence. And it's super interesting. It's super fascinating to think about all of these things. Why do neurons in our brain, how do they know how to... how do our cells know how to differentiate by themselves? How this whole complex organism takes form in a few months. Neurons, for example, and dendrites and the axon follow guidance cues, which are proteins, to find their target. And their target could be another neuron or a gland in your body or a muscle. It's not us that decide that this is happening. It's happening by itself. Same with the mycelium, the mushroom. Same with trees. Same with animals that live in communities. We all have... everything seems to have a tendency to self-organize in order to decrease the chaos and to increase order, I guess. And I think that all of this goes back to self-assembly, but also self-assembly of molecules is based on something even smaller, which is atoms, and then we have quantum physics, and who knows what's below that. But self-assembly of molecule is a little bit the same thing. Molecules self-assemble to produce bigger and more complex molecules that have more order. And then you have organic chemistry, and then a few molecules that are organic, when they're together, they can form like a microorganism, and then a microorganism with another microorganism can form a cell, and then multiple cells, and then you have parasites, and you have multiple cells that produce like very primitive life form. So it all goes like it's a continuum. It's a continuum that's super smart by itself, and it's an intelligence that's not cognitive. So why is that? I mean, to me, this is important to know because it is interesting to know, but also to put the human being in the context of the totality. Like, where do we stand as human beings with our rationality and our imagination and our understanding and our motivations and all of that? Where do we stand in all of this? It's hard to say really, because it seems like we're in a notion of everything, and it's a continuum. Nobody can really define what's the infinite small, and it's not the quarks or subatomic particles. Maybe these are huge. Maybe quarks are a big universe for something that's so much smaller or so different in quality. Maybe it's a different kind of waves. It's a different kind of wave that we don't know of and we can't really measure. And what is the infinite big? We can't really define all of these things. So where are we really in this whole thing? I find that this is a very good question, and I feel like of course we won't be able to answer it scientifically, because first of all we don't have the tools to do so, and we don't have the mental capacity to do so, because we are bound to our senses, and our senses adapted based on what we need to adapt in our context, in our environment, or in nature. But our nature, the way we see it on Earth, isn't the totality of things, so we can't really know. But what I think that we could, like, a better an easier way to tap into all of this complexity and to put ourselves in this context, this big context, is by listening and feeling and meditating. It's being in a meditative state, because I believe that the body evolved from nature. I mean, for sure, we evolved from nature. We evolved of the self-assembly of molecules. So it's in us. It's in us. We are made of it. Maybe we cannot sense it with our organs, because our organs and our brain are structured upon what I'm talking about. So what we probably need to do is to fully surrender and relax and allow these things to happen in us, instead of using like the mental box that we have that's on top of these things. The mental capacities of the human being it's very good, it's very important, but it's important to understand things cognitively. It's not made to understand things at a deeper level, at the experiential level. So that's why I feel like this kind of knowledge, this kind of knowing how to tune in lacks, and it's so important. I think that I'm not sure, but I think that it would be an important thing to integrate in our life in the 21st century, because we've been very mental in the lately, like the 200 years or so that passed with all the industrialization. We've been very mental, and everything that's extremist is not good. So we need the pendulum has to swing back, and we have to go back to the senses with a surrender, an inner surrender. When I say surrender, I don't mean it in a bad way, like to give up. It's not giving up. Surrendering means being very relaxed and passive, and not like always getting after it and thinking that we know everything, because we don't know. We don't know much. But we can know a little bit better, again, by surrendering to this totality, and try to understand non-cognitively what's what this whole thing is about. It can be maybe like a dream, or it can be at the sense, at the feeling level. And here the brain will want to understand, and by understanding, by trying to understand, let's say that we're capable of going deep and maybe be in touch with everything and in tune with everything. That's what I'm saying. Like the brain will want to understand, and to use the curiosity to know. But I think that we need to tame this urge of understanding, especially the ones who are very curious. I'm one of them. So I'm one of them, and I need to learn how to tame that, because if I really want to get deep, the brain won't understand, because the brain has evolved on top of these fundamental things. So it won't be able to understand them. It will be able to maybe understand them at an intellectual level, but not at the deeper level. So anyhow, I'm saying the reason why I'm saying that this is important is because we went too far in competition and in the industrial world and producing stuff and extracting oil and gas and doing things, and the human being has created a universe based on his or her own ego, really, and our own interpretation of how things should be. But things shouldn't be necessarily the way we think that they should be. Like, oh, I need to have like a huge house, or I need to have like this or that, or I need to do these things before I die. We don't need that. We don't. This is all like, these are all conclusions that we come up with because of our own experience in life. And our own experience is very limited. It's limited to what you have lived or what I have lived. So if I want to remove myself from my situation and my upbringing and all of that, and I want to look at life the way it is, or the totality, then maybe I would realize, or you would realize, or anybody would realize that the checklist that we had isn't, after all, that important. Maybe what's also important is to fucking realize that we are part of this totality, and where do we belong in this totality? How can we coexist with it in a better way? How can we be more at peace, and with other people and with nature, and in between nations? And how can we connect back to nature? So that's why I'm interested in this intelligence that we are made of, and the mycelium, and the trees and constellations, because we are part of it and we come from it. It happened that we evolved as human beings. For example, our bloodstream, our blood vessels are very similar to streams, to rivers, and our skin is very much like the surface of the earth. It's probably symbolic what I'm talking about, but it has some truth in it, for sure. I think that it has truth in it, because we come from it. So if we come from something, then we have to resemble it to a certain degree. So trying to feel that and to be in touch with it brings us closer to reality. And I believe that it's important to know what reality is, or at least to be in touch and in tune with reality. Otherwise we deviate so much from it, and we become out of context with reality. And by becoming out of context, we can do a lot of bad things, like fucking up the planet. But I'm interested in all of these things, because I am curious, and because I like to learn. And it brings me a lot of peace and a lot of perspective too when I think of these things like that. It kind of gives me like an edge over myself, over my ego, because my problems become like insignificant almost. Of course, I live in the material world, so I need to make money. I need to have a roof and all of that. But all of this becomes very decreased. Like I'm very minimal. I'm much more interested in digging deep in myself, because there's so much to dig in oneself, and it's endless, and it can take a lifetime, and it's not boring. You don't need to get like we don't need to buy too much stuff. We don't need to do too much things. We don't need to go experience all the restaurants in the world. Sometimes what we can do is to tune in and to understand non-cognitively us and our relationship with things, and watching documentaries, for example, and seeing where we fit in all of this picture. Thank you.